Diana always knew that the old well outside her little house was approaching the dark. Standing in the middle of the garden, exhausted by weeds and crushed stones, silently forgotten, who was hanging around this place. Their fathers were always ahead of the curve, never go close to the well. Diana could not help but notice what was happening in her name. One evening, when the dads went to the place, she was left alone. Silence descended on the alarm, and the girl could not help but feel the wondrous presence. She walked up to the window and heard a faint fog rising from the depths of the well, as if the sky was alive there below. Now Diana could no longer lean on her. She went out onto the street, carefully approaching the well. It was quiet. If she hovered over the deep clay, a faint whisper rose up. The voice sounded muffled and silent, lying somewhere that had long been forgotten. "Help me," the voice sounded indecipherable, but her groan penetrated Diana's savagery, like a steel thread, which pulled her ever closer. She leaned lower and noted that there was a reflection near the water, as it should not have been. Sabulo exposed the boy with the dead eyes. He simply marveled at her. Her body seemed to numb with fear, but she could not bear to look. "Help me," I shouted again, stronger now. She noticed that her hands were shaking and her legs were no longer heard. As if invisibly, she was being pulled down, near the dark well. Diana desperately tried to escape, but it was too late. Cold, sticky fear squeezing her soul. And then she realized that the well was not just an old hole in the ground. VN being a portal to something greedy, something that was counting hundreds of dollars on a new victim. And here, deep below, the sleepwalker whispers, "Now you are one of us." The darkness faded away, and no one else in the village knew about the well. Several days passed, and Diana's fathers began to wiggle. She was not at home when the stench appeared that evening, and the searches did not yield the desired results. The neighbors guessed that they were watching, as Diana was walking near the well, but no one else was watching. The hour had passed, and the fathers' fears grew into incredible fears. The police were looking for the girl, but the village lived its happy lives, and it seemed that nothing untoward had happened. One evening until the wake-up call, "I don't know." This is a gray-haired man with deep wrinkles on his face, and an old cloak that has wrinkles. His eyes were as gloomy as the well itself. He only told his fathers, "It's your fault to shut him up." "About what?" Dad asked in shock. "Colatiers," the old man croaked, his voice low and terrible, otherwise death itself would have been inevitable. "Your Donka is in the middle." Father deeply darkened them, and a cold sweat appeared on his face. Mother Diani noticed how her heart began to beat wildly. Their screams mixed with the silence that filled the room. The old man, without explaining anything more, simply knew about the day, depriving them of both his fear and incredulity. That same night, Father Diani decided to check the well himself. He had a weaker understanding that everything was more than amazingly unreasonable. He took the light and headed straight to the garden. The wind was oppressive, otherwise nature itself knew about those who came to this well. When the man approached, he began to walk. As the fog rose again from the depths, the mob died from the well. He sat down, leaning over the dark water. That one was indestructible, it was a mirror. Father, having lowered the light deeper, is ready to get some rest for the day. And then I felt a whisper. "Tato, Yogo found blood in his veins." "This is Diani's voice." He rushed back, just as he was beginning to be pulled in the middle. Cold, invisible hands grabbed him by the wrists, pulling him down. Dad tried to escape, but was unsuccessful. And then we were exposed to the water, just like we were dead, with empty eyes. Vona said, "Get away from me." At this moment, a strong and invisible grip squeezed him so intensely that he could no longer breathe. The darkness began to tarnish his mind, and he sensed how the well would soak his soul. It was quiet over the booth. No one else cared about Diana. No one asked about it, "Dad." And again, as before, the well at the edge of the garden has become a forgotten place where no one dared to approach. Ale whispers without knowing. Once again I was there, at the depths of the well, listening for new voices, new souls that would eat until dark.